I've got a bit of a bizarre problem here. I've got a 65 plate Mk5 Mondeo 2 litre diesel. The car was just driving along as you do, and the engine just cut out dead, and that was it. We had it recovered back here. I plugged the scanner into it to see what codes are in the ECU, and it's come up with P0088, fuel system pressure too high. Now normally, in fact, in just about all cases we have here, the fuel pressure is always too low on the high pressure fuel system. But to have the fuel pressure too high, this is a really odd one. So I'm going to quickly run you through what I've gone through, which has got me absolutely nowhere, and then I'm going to show you what I reckon the problem is. So obviously the first thing I went for was to remove the fuel filter, just to make sure it wasn't blocked or anything silly going on in here, or whether it is full of metal filings. And obviously it wasn't. The fuel was nice and clean in here and the filter was okay, but I just fitted a brand new filter anyway as part of the course and put it back together. I swapped out the fuel rail pressure switch just in case. That made no difference. And in the end of the fuel rail there's a pressure relief valve. I swapped that from another car as well in case that valve was getting stuck, but that obviously didn't cure it either. This car definitely has got high fuel pressure in the fuel rail. And what I'll do is I'll show you the kind of pressure that's in this rail. I'm just going to crack off the pressure switch on this fuel rail so you can see how much pressure is actually coming out of here. Whoa! Now I know these common rail high pressure fuel systems have a lot of fuel pressure in them. But having worked on these Mk5 Mondeos for some years now, and I've cracked off many injectors straight after the engine's been running, you don't get that kind of pressure squirting out. So there is something wrong, and for some reason this definitely has got high fuel pressure in that fuel rail. So after poncing around, getting absolutely nowhere and not really knowing what I'm doing, I found something rather interesting. So here's the thing, I'd previously carried out the fuel injector leak-off test, but I'd left the fuel injector leak-off pipes disconnected from the injectors. So I'm going to switch the ignition on. The fuel pump is priming for 4 or 5 seconds. Just watch this pipe. La-di-da, la-di-da. There you go. You see that fuel coming out? That should not be doing that. Fuel should not be coming out of that leak-off pipe. Whenever I have carried out a fuel injector leak-off test on one of these engines, never ever have I had fuel flow out of the leak-off pipes. So that said to me something seriously wrong on the low pressure side of the fuel system. So what I'd done was I got my head down by the fuel tank underneath and I got somebody to switch the ignition on. And guess what I heard? Normally you would hear like the drone of the pump priming. You do hear that, but there was also, I can only describe it as fuel bubbling or being splashed around in the tank. That's what it sounded like. Something is not right in the goddamn fuel tank of this car. So what I'm going to do now I've actually got something to go on, I've got a direction, I'm going to remove the fuel tank and have a look at the pump, the electric pump in the tank, because I believe now that is what our problem is. With the fuel pump in this particular tank, there is no inspection hole underneath the back seats or in the boot. So you literally have to drop the tank out from underneath the vehicle. Bummer. I've removed the passenger side vehicle under tray because this is covering the fuel pipes that I need to disconnect. Your exhaust is pretty straightforward. You've got one wire for your rear exhaust sensor and 2 15mm nuts, and then that whole exhaust will drop straight down. There we go. And now I've just got one exhaust mount either side of this back box, and then I'll take this exhaust right out the way. There's 2 fuel pipes I need to disconnect under here. This first one, it looks like you need a special tool to release the clips that are actually inside here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick a piece of electrical wire in that hole and push it in basically to release the clips. I've put a bowl underneath to catch any fuel spillage, but if I press that wire in there, like so, let's see if it comes out. Yep, that's off. Bingo. And the main fuel feed pipe, this is a bit easier. There's just like a clip you can just release. And that pulls out, and then you can just pull it apart. Here we go. Let that bit of fuel drain out. And there's one last panel underneath the car that has to come off. Yeah, that can come down and out of the way. There's a fuel vent pipe that comes out the back of the tank at the middle, and it runs round to the passenger side where the filler neck is. It's got the similar clip on it as the fuel feed pipe I disconnected earlier. So I've disconnected it, but I'm going to have to be careful with this pipe when I lower the tank that I don't snag it or break it. The fuel filler pipe has got like a 7mm Jubilee clip on it. So I'm going to undo this clip and disconnect it here. I've ended up undoing the other Jubilee clip next to the tank, and I'm going to pull the pipe right off so I can't get this to come off. So let's see how we go. And that's it, we're off. Now I can take that hose right out of the way. I've blocked that fuel filler hole. I know the fuel's low in this tank anyway, but just in case, we don't want to get any splashes coming out of there. So all that's left now is 2 metal straps holding this tank up with 4 13mm bolts. So I'm going to put a stand under here, undo these bolts, pull the straps off and let the tank out. As I was lowering the tank out, I then discovered that the actual breather pipe was easier to disconnect from the top of the tank once you had it down a little bit. I decided to lower the tank out on this T-trolley, which was actually donated to us by some kind person. The only problem, and yeah, I've had to space it out because the tank's an odd shape with some wooden blocks and some pads. But I just don't know where I'm going to put my cup of tea for the next few days. There's one plug connector on top of this tank unit that comes off actually quite easy. It's got one hell of a long length of wire on it, which is pretty handy, so I'll move that out of the way. Now this pump is actually held in by like it looks like a big metal ring that you just knock round. That's gone. Before I forget, I'm just going to blow the dust off the top of the tank so nothing falls in. So this is it. Let's see if the old pump comes out. Yep, she's free. And there's a great big green seal there. There we go. Oh, we've got a float there. Let's get this out of the way. But there we go, one fuel pump assembly. In actual fact, this bit here, I think it's called the swirl pot, is actually full of fuel. That's so there's always a constant supply of fuel being picked up by the filler pickup pipe. So if you go around a corner, it's not going to suck in air and then conk the engine out. And your motor's right in the middle there. From what I can judge, all the pipes seem to be on and in place properly, so nothing's come out. We've got our float here for our fuel gauge. So everything looks in place. Anyway, I've blanked off the hole in the fuel tank, so no grit or nothing, all bugs fly into the fuel tank. And I'm going to go and see if I can find a fuel pump, and actually I want the whole assembly, the whole flipping lot, because I don't want to put a pump in it. I don't know if you can get a pump separate to these, but I don't want to put a pump in it and then find out it was part of the other mechanism or there's a one-way valve in it somewhere that I've missed. So I'm going to change the whole lot. I've just got to find one first. No, it's not 6 months later. It's actually a week later. I've just received this, well, second-hand unit from the scrapyard. You know, I actually like the way they cut off these pipes rather than just unclipping them. Alrighty then. I'm going to take the 2 pipes off this old unit, fit them onto this one, check everything looks about right. If it does, I shall then pop this back into the fuel tank and we'll see if it works. Pop that puppy on there, clip it in, done. Okay, I'll just move this rag out of the way. Our seal looks pretty good, so we'll use that again, despite the fact I haven't got a new seal anyway, but it looks okay. Okay, I'll guide the float in first, so that don't get snagged. And then we'll lower the whole pump assembly down. There we go. Okay, now this will just press down now and slot in. And all we've got to do is fix our ring on. That will slot onto its locators. Now I've just got to tap this metal ring around to the clockwise till it's all locked in place properly. Right. So this ring is on nice and firmly now. In fact, it is flipping tight putting it on. You've got to whack it round quite hard to actually get it to move, because there's like a ridge there that these bits go over the top of. And you've really got to whack this ring hard to get it to move over that ridge. But it's on as far as it will go now. So I shouldn't think that's going to be leaking.